Welcome to the Disrupt Education Podcast. I'm Peter Hostrasser. I have a wonderful, wonderful guest today. Ekta Sahasi is here. Man, there's so many titles I can give you. In the introduction, I threw out a lot of different things, but thank you first off for being here with us on Disrupt Education.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So with all the things that you have done, let's go into you. What are you up to these days? What do you do? How do you change the world?
Wow, that's a big question.
I like to throw the big one out there.
There is a lot that's happening in this world today that we live in, and there's a lot of opportunities and there's a lot of challenges. And I like to kind of step back and look at how can I do my part in making the world a better place, for not only my generation, but the generations to come. And I get very excited and inspired by it. There is a lot of technology out there that we can bring to bear, but I think we need to be very thoughtful in terms of not overwhelming our next generation, because I think technology is evolving fast, but human beings are still evolving at the pace they used to evolve at. And so I think we have to be mindful of how we indulge in it and how do we really sort of look at technology and solutions and bring them to really solve real problems for us and the next generation to come. And so right now, that's what I'm focused on. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm passionate about. I've done a lot of different things in my career, but now it's time for me to take all of the different building blocks and put it together to work on something that's going to have a global impact. So working on my own company right now.
And I can't wait to jump into that. That's on the Disrupt Education question side. Before we get into that, let's take a look at your own educational path, because part of the podcast is all about, people, the humanistic approach to education. And obviously that's what we're building. And I'm just teasing the listeners a little bit here because I know we're going to get to that. But would you mind sharing your own educational path? What was that like inside of school, outside of school? Where were you in school? How many schools? So if you wouldn't mind just kind of unpacking your journey there.
I hope that it would have been a straight shot to becoming a computer engineer, but it was, I think, anything but. So going way back, I was 10 when I came to the United States. And so I was third grade. I came from India, and at that time I didn't know any English. So I think the first hurdle, and I went to a public school in upstate New York, the first hurdle was just really to get acclimated, get used to the US system, learn the language. I mean, it seems like such a basic thing, but it's at that age, it's hard, right? To learn a new culture, new language, and get acclimated. To spend some time doing that. And in doing so, and I was here with my parents who were also pursuing their education. We moved around a lot in upstate New York City. And finally, after several moves through elementary and middle school, we settled in Northeast Ohio. That's where I spent most of my middle school and high school years. A lot of it was, I think, sort of dabbling into different areas that I was interested in. I don't think I ever knew, like really in middle and high school, like what I was going to be and what my career trajectory was going to be, even though there were a lot of, components, educational components that came to bear at school. But I don't think I really ever knew until I got here as a computer engineer that that's what I was going to do. It was always a lot of like experimentation and trying different things. And I think that really helped. I think if I look back at my journey in middle and high school, the ability to, at no cost almost, and no cost of failure, right? Like just try it. And what's the worst that's going to happen? I'll have to spend some time and, maybe some angst in doing some stuff, but then, we'd be on the other side of it and you'd be fine. So I think my journey, I would say, has been marked with change and experimentation and sort of being very open to trying anything that came my way. And one of the things that my parents taught me early on is don't fixate on how this thing is going to create some value for me in the future or how it's going to contribute to something later on. Just know that the dots will connect and they'll connect in the most interesting ways. And so indulge in the learning try things out, and then it'll all be, sort itself out later. And as a matter of fact, I think that's what happened. Sort of tail end of my high school years is like, okay, now I got to figure out what I'm going to do. So I was going to be in pre-med, and so I went to actually college to pursue medical degree. And first year college decided to try organic chemistry. That was not something I was passionate about. I don't think I could even deal with. And so I said, this is not going to happen. And so I decided to try a whole host of different engineering disciplines. And the last one I actually tried was computer science and engineering. And I fell in love. I was a tinkerer all of my life. I tried different things. And so it was the perfect playground. I could just do stuff, and I could run programs. And if it would run successfully, I would get, 2 thumbs up back when the internet was just getting discovered. So, it was amazing. And I did that. And it just opened so many doors, Peter, for me. Like, it wasn't computer engineering and computer science wasn't only about being a programmer sitting behind the computer. It was really a lot about, looking at patterns and recognizing patterns, logical thinking, critical thinking, right? And sort of, fast forward that like 15, 20 years later, I feel like every discipline in the workforce today is about that critical thinking, is about that, connecting the dots, being able to work effectively across organizations to create, to innovate. So, those skills that I picked up as an engineer just were pivotal to everything I do today.
Do you think you would have found that in high school if you have the platform we're about to talk about right now?
I think it would have helped the journey.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have definitely helped clear up doubts. It would have helped organize the thought process. It would have not felt as random. I think I would have been able to proceed with more confidence. So I definitely think so.
And that, by the way, is we're talking about a little bit of spikeview here. How are you changing education for the better right now? What is your disruptive piece that you're gonna help, or you are helping people connect those dots?
I have 3 teenage kids, so I experience a very unique phenomenon, a very unique challenge when I just observe what they're doing and what they're trying to do. And it's not that different from when I was growing up. What is different is there's so much being tossed at our kids these days. Under the framework of opportunity, right? There's this amazing new camp. There's this amazing new class. There's this AI thing kids are doing, right? And it's exposure of different things at a younger and younger age, which I think is fantastic. But there aren't really any guardrails to make decisions on and choosing between one choice versus another, and rationalizing why spend the time doing this thing versus spend the time doing this thing. And I find that to be, as a parent, very challenging, and as a student, as my children and their peers going through this, as something that causes a lot of stress and anxiety. Where I think the intention is, with all of these opportunities to give you choices, I think just the opposite is happening. And so really a lot of the inspiration of what Spikeview is and where it came from was to provide a relief to this, right? So that you could make choices and trade-offs on the things that you choose to do based on your passions, based on your interest vectors. And the problem and the challenge we're trying to solve is, as students go from one thing to the next, as they're going through experiential stuff, extracurriculars and things that they're doing at school, they do that activity and move on to the next thing, right? But there isn't a journey map of what's been done, right? And so if you could catalog a journey map of what's been done, one, you feel really great about it, because oftentimes everybody loses sight of these unbelievable things these kids are doing, right? So one is it catalogs, and you can look at that, and Spikeview does a great job, I think, to visually showcase where you've been. And then you can use that to make determinations based on your narrative, and the platform will actually offer you opportunities to either further develop those passion areas or it'll offer you opportunities that enable you to explore new and different areas. And so you can then make calculated choice, because we all have 24 hours. And in that, we have to eat, sleep, do homework, all these other things, right? So there's only a limited amount of time where you're going to be able to sort of spend and go deep in an area. So after organizing your narrative, you can then, with the Spikeview platform, pick and choose options of opportunities, whether it's internships, scholarships, competition you want to be part of, so that you can start to see your narrative forming and you can start to make choices of what's next for you. If you're kind of a senior looking forward to college or alternate pathways, you can look at that and say, okay, I'm really passionate about this. Take your narrative and take it to experts like counselors, or use it for college admissions to apply and get that feedback that you need to make the choices, right? So ultimately, how we're disrupting things is sort of in an indirect way. We're just saying, oh my gosh, you're doing these amazing things. Let's catalog them. Give yourself a competitive advantage. Start skipping the line. Let's make you, sort of organize your personal narrative, your personal story, your personal brand, and showcase that out to the world to take advantage of it at the intersection of your passion and your needs. That's what we're doing.
There's a lot in there. And here's what's interesting. I really love this idea. Obviously, my listeners know I'm a huge proponent of the online portfolio. And that's a very generic way to say what Spikeview does. Looking at the platform, and we're going to be implementing it at my school. One of the greatest things that are coming out of a lot of the political realms, especially in education, are what is this profile of a graduate, or what are the 5 pillars that somebody should walk out of school with. Yet there's this gap in really understanding how to show those. And I'm super excited about what Spikeview is actually helping students to take that pause and start building, not only connecting dots between pillars in math, science, English, your course, and then everything else, sports, electives. The story goes on, and that's what's beautiful about it. How do you teach students to build in public? How do you get them to do that? Is there an age range that you start at? Because I see some challenges there in the classroom, and I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit about that, because that's a mindset shift a little bit. But what are your look at that, not only with your own children, but with Spikeview stories as well?
Yeah, no, I think that's a fantastic question. I mean, I think, tools galore, right? There's tons of tools out there for all sorts of stuff, tons of platforms, right, that everybody's tossing at our kids. But the question is, who's guiding them to really organize it, right? And I think a lot of what we've done with Spikeview is to add that guidance in it. And it varies, right? If you have a student that's in an elementary school, they're super excited about doing something. Maybe they'll even catalog it. And so if you could give them a guided way of saying, okay, you've done this really amazing, baseball tournament, for instance, or this amazing robotics, you were part of this amazing robotics competition and you got your feet wet with robotics. Take those photos and videos, and, parents take them, so many of those, right? And take your learnings and reflections, come into Spikeview, create an account, and it'll guide you to how to put that experience element in your narrative. So you don't have to necessarily come up and, like you would do in a resume or some other, like a document if you're putting together. The platform is guided and sort of steps a student through every step of the process to enable them with tools and tips and whatnot that tell them what kinds of things to think about putting in there. So it's all in their authentic voice, but it's guided. So they know the types of things. I mean, we will see a variety of things that kids will put, from volunteering experiences to robotics competitions they've won, to if they're, babysitting their baby brother at their, at home while mom is doing a accounting class online. I mean, we've got kids from all walks of life putting in all of these amazing experiences that they're super proud of, and the platform guides them to do that. As you get into high school, I think what you start to see is a little bit more of seriousness around building more arcs of accomplishment. So if you're a baseball player or you're an artist, maybe you might choose to put a full-on portfolio in our platform within the context of the full narrative. And again, the platform has been built in such a way, it's super user-friendly, so it'll guide the students every step of the way in terms of how you can put your data into it and how that profile comes to emerge as this amazing portfolio of you. What we've taken away from the students, which students have clearly told us after 3 years of research, is we don't like to do all this formatting. Like, we'll just put in all the data and then out comes this beautiful portfolio, and they can show it in a linear way. They can show it in a beautiful presentation. So the platform takes away all the complexities of how to present that portfolio. And on the beginning side, it just basically guides you through on the types of things to put. And we give full amount of flexibility because every student is unique. Every journey is unique. And so we really encourage kids to think about, what is it that they're proud of? What do they feel really accomplished with? What are their experiences that make them unique that somebody else would want to know, that makes them interesting, right? And then put those things, and it's limitless, right? You can add personal stuff, you can add experiential stuff, you can add work stuff. A lot of our students will even put like these cool, amazing, creative stuff that they do on social media as work experience on their spikeview to showcase their creative talent. And that gets lost on social media today, right? And we catalog it, and then they can use that to seek out internships, to seek out gigs that will pay them for that, talent. So it's pretty incredible.
And it also, so on the other side, you started alluding to my next question is, so on the other side, where are students using these for? Obviously, they're building in public, they're building their own brand. You mentioned internships, you mentioned job opportunities as well. There's colleges, there's universities, there's boot camps, different things that are coming. Tell us a little bit about, what are the other end of, seekers on that side of things. They want to know the student even more. What are some of those entities and some of those stories?
There's many different ways that students are using this. So first and foremost, I do want to say this, that as you're creating your narrative, as you're creating your profile, it's done privately. And the platform will allow you to create custom views to share for your need. So then your question of where do they share them? So what we're seeing students do is they will share, they'll create a custom link and they'll share it to apply it for an internship. So where they're being asked for, share a resume or, share a LinkedIn, they will instead share a SpikeView link to represent who they are. So internships, jobs, job sites, employers, they'll email, employers directly their SpikeView links. In college applications under additional information, we've got students sharing those. We see a huge uptick on student athletes who are sharing their SpikeView profiles with athletic directors at universities to build those early relationships, freshman, junior, freshman, sophomore year, as early as that, to say, hey, I'm a fantastic, player, but then here is everything else about me as well. So think of it as a link that you share with someone to really get to know them. We've got students who are sharing links with each other so that they can form teams around competitions. So there's a plethora of use cases. So think about this as your personal sort of narrative, your personal brand that you're sharing with someone. And it's as simple as a link that gets into somebody's inbox. They click on it and they see this amazing narrative about you.
This is all about students actually taking control of their own learning and understanding their outcomes and, building networks. And there's so many pieces that they can control here. And with that being said, I'm going to throw the big disrupt education question is, so, you're building this wonderful platform, or it's built and it's out there. People are starting to use it. What is one thing in education, if you were like the person to change it right now, and we're talking systemic education in the United States or across the world, what would one thing that you would require people to have or do in that system? I don't like the word require, but like you would change to make learning better, more exciting, more engaging for people?
All of our children are inherently curious, and they have such amazing talents and abilities. And I think we, as a society, have become so hyper fixated on competition and achievements and accomplishments. And while I do think those things are important. I think that, for any given competition, there will be one or a few winners, right? But then there are so many other kids who have competed who are very well qualified. Not everybody can win, but that doesn't mean that the effort and the work that they've done cannot be celebrated and recognized. And so I think the number one thing really for our next generation to grow up confident, to be producing adults, to be contributing adults into societies, and to make societies better and more thoughtful, and one that's sort of like pulling in the direction of the greater good for the humanity, I think we need to provide a mechanism for kids to feel celebrated. Right. And there are a lot of dominant platforms where a lot of the reward is around, how many followers you have or how influential you are as an influencer. And again, while all of those things are great and here to say, and there's some entertainment value, I think underlying all of that, our kids are suffering from validation. Our kids are suffering from being not acknowledged for who they are and not being, supported for the journey they've taken. And so, my request, my ask, as I think about education more holistically is, let's do that, because we're asking our kids to step up and do a lot. And we're, I think, as a generation who's supporting them, not doing enough to recognize that. And I think we need to change it.
That is wonderful. Yes, I have about 13 students on mine right now of my own who have these journeys where if I'd never asked them, they wouldn't have an outlet for that. And providing that is something that's spectacular. On a platform, there is a humanistic approach to it. There is connection there. There's so many different avenues that a student can take with that. So I wanted to leave you with a chance to tell people, how can they connect with you? How can they connect with SpikeView? And if they're interested in taking a look at that, where can they do that?
Yeah, couple of ways to connect with me. I manage my own SpikeView profile. So, look, we're all multifaceted, right? So I'm a technologist, I'm a founder, I'm also an artist, and I'm a fencer. So all of that's on my SpikeView profile. So get an account on spikeview.com and, connect with me there. You can send me an email at team@spikeview.com. We're a web-based and app-based platform, so you can definitely download, us from the App Store, and it's a free platform. Try it out. We don't sell the student data, so we're a safe, secure platform. Really, what we're about is giving students a very powerful voice to organize and tell the world who they are on their terms, in their authentic voice. And then the platform gives them the ability to connect, build a network with their peers or other like-minded people across the globe, and build communities in affinity groups that they're passionate about, get their voices heard, contribute valuable content. So, play around with the platform. And, if you have feedback right within the platform, you can, connect with us and give us feedback on what's working, what else you'd like to see. And, we're continuing to grow, and we're building the largest community of teens and young adults on our platform, and giving them the opportunities that they need to succeed. And our motto is own your narrative and maximize your potential. And that's really kind of the crux of SpikeView, is that everybody has a potential that they can maximize, and we want to be a partner in that journey to make our kids, enable our kids to do that.
SpikeView app, spikeview.com. Amazing stuff, spectacular. Having students own it and build their value and find those opportunities. Ekta, I want to thank you so much for sharing your own personal journey and what you're doing with SpikeView to just basically help the humanistic approach to education.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
And thank you, listeners, for hanging out with us today. We'll catch you next time on Disrupt Education.